San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling here on Wrestling Observer Live, and I want to tell you right now, this show is going to go too quick. Because we're going to have Mike Tenay in the first hour. We only have 1 hour with Mike Tenay talking about TNA, which debuts on Spike on this coming Saturday night. They're taping it on Tuesday, and then, of course, they will be on with a replay on the following Monday, which is probably the biggest night in pro wrestling from a historical perspective. From an historical importance perspective, I would say this is the most important night of pro wrestling since March 26th, 2001. Would that be it, Brian?
I would say
that
so,
would be
yeah.
the night of the Raw and the Nitro.
Yeah, I guess actually without question, really.
Yeah, so it's a big one. It's the biggest week for TNA. It's among the more important weeks ever for UFC. It's important to an extent for WWE because they're going to start on the USA Network on Monday, but it's not as important as they're making it out to be because of the groups that need it the most, that really need to hit a home run. It's WWE that's going far beyond.
They're going crazy.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it because, I mean, if you look at all the lineup, it's like they're adding something every third day to a show they've already long passed the point of overkill. So, yeah, it's going to be...
Well, we're getting a 3-hour Raw. We're getting 2 hours of live UFC, Ultimate Fighter, TNA, WWE TV special, a best of UFC knockouts, and UFC Unleashed all in one night.
And the Rock movie, if you really want to see it.
Yeah, but...
Who does?
That's true. You're right about that. We are going to be joined right after the commercial break. We're going to get Mike Tenay on, and we'll start talking TNA. You can call us. You can call in for Mike, or just talk about wrestling in the first hour. 1-800-878-PLAY. Second hour, we'll be talking to Mick Foley about his book Scooter, and we'll be talking to him about his return, which will be on that show October 3rd. He will be in Piper's Pit. Brian, real quick, we'll talk to Mike about this as well, because there may be a Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels Iron Man match on October the 3rd. Actually, we don't have time to talk about it right now. We'll have to come back on the break and talk about Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels Iron Man match. And there's another Iron Man match on the TNA Bound for Glory pay-per-view on October 23rd with Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles, which is a rematch of perhaps the second best match in the history of the TNA promotion. I would have said the best match a couple weeks ago, but I think we got a new best match. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're here with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Our guest for the first hour, Mike Tenay, the professor, the voice of TNA, backstage booking assistant. Been with the company 3.5 years, and I would say that between Tuesday and the following Tuesday, when the first number from Monday night comes out, biggest 8 days, without question, in the history of your company, and probably we're coming up on, we've talked about the biggest week in TNA history many, many times. When you started on FSN, when you started on pay-per-view, when you had your first monthly pay-per-view, when you had your first TV special on with Best Damn Sports Show. This is bigger than all of them, more important than all of them combined. And you ready?
Boy, are we ever. Dave and Brian, great to join you guys once again on the program. It's one of those times where it is just so exciting to be a part of the product. I think it's an exciting time to be a part of the wrestling business, and I think for the first time in quite a few years, you can even make the statement that it's again exciting to be a wrestling fan as you see how everything shakes out as we head into the next basically couple of weeks, next month or so, involving the WWE moving to USA, TNA moving into the slot on Spike TV, and Spike as well with the big push on the UFC product. I just think it's a great time once again to be a wrestling fan.
One thing that we've learned, and this one, I think it surprised a lot of people, because it's the first of a whole bunch of changes that were going to happen this month. The first one was a couple weeks ago when SmackDown moved to Friday. And SmackDown had not been a stellar show for a long time, in my opinion, and it is not. But it basically, held its audience for the most part, moving to Friday, and that says that, Raw is going to hold its audience. It might even grow going to USA Network. Time will tell. But you guys, you have to grow an audience from basically a new time. The Monday night slot is a new time slot for fans. The Saturday night slot is the velocity time slot, which, you're going to probably be built in with the 0.5 or so that WWE still has without doing anything with the slot for months, knowing that they were a lame duck. So now, of course, Tuesday night is the first show. You got AJ Styles against Roderick Strong. We already know about that. We know that the former Dudleys are going to be there. Kevin Nash, Tito Ortiz, Gail Kim. Am I missing anybody as far as on that show? That's the main people coming in. You got, I know that you guys working on the creative. You've got a lot of plans for a lot of people, and basically your thing is up with Monty Brown, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. I mean, these guys are going to have to become stars in the next 6 months.
Well, it's that old cliche that we have that one opportunity to make that first impression, and I think we're going to come out of the box really with all of our guns blazing. I think we've got some very good TVs lined up for the first couple of weeks, basically the first 4 weeks, right, leading into our Bound for Glory pay-per-view on October the 23rd, where I think we have arguably the best lineup in TNA history, and I know that sounds like a cliche, and I know it's part of the marketing strategy that it's going to be, the biggest pay-per-view ever. It's going to be our Super Bowl and our World Series all rolled into one. But at the same time, when you look at the matches that have already been announced for Bound for Glory, and you see the positioning, especially if you had a chance to see our Unbreakable pay-per-view a couple of weeks ago. I really think that you can see where a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are coming into place for TNA. We desperately need to do our absolute best to get some of the people like an AJ Styles and like a Monty Brown, who are definitely very familiar as far as the current TNA audience goes, but yet to that overall wrestling audience that has pretty much just been watching the WWE product for the past couple of years. We have our work cut out for us in terms of introducing them to the audience. At the same time, however, I'm so confident when you think of what an AJ Styles and a Christopher Daniels and a Samoa Joe and so many of the other great X Division stars, the guys that we have in the Ultimate X match at the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. When you consider what they can bring in terms of an in-ring product, it makes the job of the people on the creative team a lot easier, and I think it makes us even more confident as we go into Tuesday night in anticipation of the first show next Saturday on Spike.
Is there a plan to make one of the belts or one of the divisions kind of the centerpiece of the promotion, or is it going to kind of depend on which storylines are leading where on a particular pay-per-view?
Well, I think we've already done a pretty darn good job of positioning the X Division champion as pretty close to an equal with the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. I think we sent quite a statement with the last pay-per-view, the Unbreakable show, on 9/11, where we had the X Division match, which, as Dave has reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a 5-star match, and so many people calling it the match of the year. When we positioned that X Division match as the final match on the show and the main event on the pay-per-view, I think that sends quite a message as to the feelings of the current booking team, the creative team, when it comes to how important we think that title is.
Now, I had a question, because you were in a war, and you know it. And then a lot of people in wrestling, they know it, but they don't really know what it means, and you know what it means. And, there's an Iron Man match that will probably be on the October 3rd Raw with Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, which was announced a couple of days after your Iron Man match was announced. And some people will say it's a coincidence, but it's not, okay? And, it's not. I mean, it's just what it is, and you're going to see a lot of stuff like that. What's your feelings knowing that, like, in a sense, you're fighting an adversary, you're fighting a gorilla. I mean, there's no question. I mean, you're fighting an established name brand that's had 21 years of national experience, that's done pay-per-views that have done 1 million buys, that has names that are known to generations. They're bringing back on Monday night. They're bringing back Hogan. They're bringing back Steve Austin, Mick Foley, Triple H. I mean, no matter what you do, I mean, it's like they have a history. They've got things that you can't compete with, but you have to in some way, and I know like with the positioning of the X division, you're trying to do something that they don't do. They don't do anything with the cruiserweights. They say they will, they never will. Okay, so that's something different, but it's still it's a hard thing to buckle because with WCW, if nothing else, WCW had a 20-year history. You've got a 3-year history, but it's a 3-year history of very limited television and very limited exposure. And you know, we all know. I mean, the product has really been there on the pay-per-views. You've had a string of good ones. The one a little over a month and a half ago was awesome. The last one wasn't quite as good, but it had perhaps the match of the year. And certainly, you know, anyone who's been watching the TNA pay-per-views, if you think that they're bad shows, I mean, I don't know what you can do to satisfy those people, but you're in an underdog role.
Absolutely love the idea of a wrestling war. You're right, been there before with WCW against WWF for many years. Relish the challenge when it comes to being a part of the creative team. When you sit back, I think, and look at it as a wrestling fan like I've been for 40-plus years, you really see how this is going to take the wrestling business and revitalize it to a certain extent. How high that level goes depends on both companies and what kind of a product we put out. But as we've seen in the past, what a wrestling war does is it brings that level of competition to almost a fever pitch. And Dave, you remember it. I lived it. Brian, I know, was definitely a viewer and through all the years of the Monday Night Wars. And there was nothing better than that anticipation for the fan at home of grabbing that remote control and switching back and forth from the Raw program to the Nitro program to see just which company, which promotion, which network could outdo the other. So from that standpoint, I guess without question going in, you labeled us as underdogs. Sure, we'll take the underdog role, but I would be willing to put our in-ring product right now and stack that in-ring product up against the WWE 7 days a week, absolutely 12 months a year. Now, when you talk about superstar talent, there's no question that WWE, they're way in front of us when it comes to that. But I think people right now, when they watch the WWE programming, and I know I'm one of them, I sense so much of a sameness to the programming, so many of the same faces, and this is one of the things when it comes to the wrestling business these days. You have that catch-22 of where you have to lock in the talent to a long-term contract to protect your own interests, but at the same time, sometimes you back yourself into a corner when you do that. And I just get this sense that the people that have been watching that sameness and have been watching that WWE product for the past couple of years, I think they're ready for something new, something completely different. They're ready for a company like TNA that's going to listen to our fans. The emails that I've received in the past couple of months about bringing in Austin Aries and a Roderick Strong to the promotion, about the different types of matches and the direction that we go. We listen to our fans. If I have anything to do with the end product, and at this point I certainly do, we're not going to insult your intelligence, and we won't make you embarrassed to say that you're a wrestling fan. And I think that's important in 2005 right now, after everything that's really gone down in the business the last couple of years.
Okay, we're going to go ahead to a break right now. We're going to come back. I've got a list of people I want to talk to you about, which are some different big-name free agents, and what your thoughts of them are, what the viability is of TNA getting them. In most cases, it's probably not that viable, but I want to talk to Mike about that. And we're going to get to your phone calls. We got every line lit up. We'll go through this question and whatever Brian has, and we're going to start taking as many calls as we can before the hour is up that we've got with Mike. Of course, Mick Foley, second hour, back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And, of course, we're here with Mike Tenay, the voice of TNA, assistant booker of TNA. We're talking about their debut. It'll be on Spike TV. It's being taped on Tuesday. It will air on Saturday night, replayed again. This coming Saturday, replayed a week from Monday, which is the biggest night for pro wrestling in many years. And Also want to remind everyone you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. We've got daily news updates, all the latest news updated throughout the day, TV reports and all that good stuff, as well as info on how to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer newsletter that I put out every week, and Figure 4 that Brian puts out every week. Without talking about what's in it, let me just tell you that the issue that comes out next week, a week from Monday, I don't know what's going to be in it, but I do know it's going to be a collector's edition, because that the night before, the issue that's for next week, that is going to be the biggest night, and whatever the fallout is, and the ratings are a big part of it, it'll all be there. So anyway, got that plug in. Mike, I guess the first thing we'll talk about is the decision to make Jeff Jarrett champion. As you know, and you knew this before you made the decision. You were part of the decision-making process. It was not, contrary to popular belief, this was not anything that was forced on you guys. This was your decision. I mean, no one held a gun to your head and just said, Jeff's the main guy, and Jeff is going to be the superstar of the company, and you can do whatever you want with the undercard. That is not how this happened. I mean, it was a decision that you made, and I know why you made it, but why don't you explain to everyone, because as soon as, and you also knew, you knew when it was made what the reaction would be. I actually thought the reaction would be stronger. Some people thought it was stronger than you expected, but anyway, your thoughts as far as Jeff Jarrett winning the title from Raven in Windsor. You were up there in Windsor, and going from there.
Yeah, a lot of interesting little hooks to that story as well, as far as being in Windsor, and we'll get to those in a second. But overall, there were probably 6 to 8 reasons why the creative team decided to go with Jeff Jarrett as the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. Some of them I can share with you now, and some will probably become very obvious after we hit Spike TV and after we move on for the next couple of months. I would say among the reasons, we wanted to position our NWA World's Champion for the best possible matches and the best drawing feuds over the course of the next year or so. We wanted to position the NWA title with the recognizable Jeff Jarrett. We wanted to add the element of the heel turn with America's Most Wanted as both a surprise and as well to add to the dynamic of the overall presentation of Jeff Jarrett and AMW when we hit Spike TV. We wanted to send a message that title changes, that major angles can occur in venues and places outside the predictable Impact zone, or where it's an Impact TV show or a TNA pay-per-view event. And, I think someone said that there are no secrets in professional wrestling anymore, and I think that person may have been me, actually. But it was absolutely amazing to see the reaction in the locker room, in the building, and certainly over the course of the next couple of days on the internet after that title change in Windsor on September the 15th. I was there, and when I made the announcement of Jeff Jarrett being the new NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, the mindset of the people in the building was one of absolute jaw-dropping disbelief. Number one, the fact that they saw a world's title change on that show. Number two, the fact that most of them, after the realization set in that they had witnessed the title change, because they've, I guess just through the years, because they've been screwed so many times, I probably had 24, maybe more people come up to me from among the fans in the crowd that night and asking me if this was really a legitimate title switch, if this was something that was going to stand, if this was something that was going to get overturned, or if this was something that would never be talked about again. As we've seen through the years, all those things have happened when it comes to wrestling and title changes. And just to add one more thing,
the house shows don't count.
And that house shows don't count, exactly. So that was another among the reasons why we made that decision. And you're right to dispel all those internet falsehoods, and that's what they were as they came out the next day or two, because, let's face it, people were caught off guard. They had to come up with a reason to cover the fact that they were caught off guard. And, you heard everything from a power play here to a Spike TV demand there, and I can tell you that none of those were accurate.
Nope, they were not. Brian, anything before you got to go?
Yeah, the question, I guess Dave brought it up in the newsletter several times now, the option of, since you've got the Monday time slot, moving the tapings to Monday sometime early in the evening and have it edited and ready to go by the midnight airing and have that be the first run show, and then Saturday would be a replay.
It's something that we have discussed internally. I don't believe that we've approached Spike TV with the idea. I think initially, because Spike is so strong in positioning us as part of the Slammin' Saturday Night lineup to be linked with UFC, I would anticipate that at least for the time being and probably for several months in, that the first run show will be on Saturday night because of that. Down the line, yeah, anything can change and anything can happen. And we've certainly talked about the upside involved in having the first run show be the Monday night show. But at this point in time, I think because of the trademark and the brand naming of Slammin' Saturday Night, I wouldn't anticipate it happening short term.
Okay, Brian, you got to go?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, Brian's out. He's going to the Pride show. I'm going to run down a couple of names for Mike as far as your thoughts on them, as far as the big stars, which you don't have. And, I mean, the Foley thing, you know, we've talked about this on the show before and written about it in the newsletter. The Foley thing was a real, that you came close to a real big one.
Very, very close.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was one of those situations where you hit your head against the wall for a day or two, and then you you figure out that, you know what, it's not going to happen no matter what, and you can sit there and cry about the fact that we're not going to have Mick Foley on that show, or you can go out and go in a different direction. And I think that as a group is the mentality and the mindset that I've seen from everybody on the creative team. Yeah, it would have been great, would have been a big step forward for us. But now that we don't have him, let's not worry about it. Let's go in another direction, and let's try and come up with some hook to the product that's going to have quite a bit of an impact as well.
Okay, before I get to some of these names, I'm going to go to Nick in Fort Scott, Kansas, who's been waiting since before the show started. Nick, you want to talk to Mike?
Yeah. You guys hear me okay?
We hear you fine.
Okay. I was just calling to ask Mike, do you see a lot of transition between guys in the X division going to the NWA, the World Heavyweight title? I guess where I'm coming from is with going back to WCW, and I don't want to jinx you guys, there were a lot of guys that were main event world champion level, but they kind of were throwing the bone of the TV title or the U.S. title.
That won't happen here. I can answer that one, but Mike, you can answer it better, but I can tell you that won't happen here.
Well, you know, Mick, I know what you're talking about, and I think when you look at the people that you have involved with the TNA creative team right now, I certainly lived through those WCW days, and I realized how important the luchadors were, and I know how important the cruiserweights were in establishing that WCW product on Monday nights as a must-see TV show, and I know that they certainly were an important and integral part of that overall promotional package that WCW had. But I think that when it comes to the level of respect that this current creative team has for the X Division wrestlers, when we realize that it is our signature division and it is in many instances what separates us from the competition, I think you're going to see that level of respect carry over to the way we treat the X Division wrestlers. As far as crossing over into the heavyweight situation, I think when it becomes, you know, appropriate, when the need arises, I think you will see that eventual crossover, and you have seen it in the first couple of years of TNA with someone like AJ Styles, being a 3-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and a 5-time X Division title holder. So I think it can be done, and I think we will do it when it makes sense.
Anything else?
Actually, yeah, I was curious, how far in advance are you guys kind of planning things out?
Well, right now we have pay-per-views pretty much booked for several months out, and as far as strong TV goes, as far as real detailed TV, we have the next 4 weeks is already in the books as far as everything being, you know, very detailed work with other ideas actually going past that. But right now, several months out as far as booking pay-per-views go, and as you know, you pretty much start with the long-term planning and work your way back, and that's what we're doing right now.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing your debut on Spike TV.
That's what I want to hear.
Okay.
Right.
Just give us a chance. That's all we ask for. Watch the product. You know, we're confident you'll like it.
All right.
Okay, Mike, I want to ask you about a couple of names. Brock Lesnar.
Well, I think pending his legal situation with the WWE, and who knows how long that's going to take, if it's going to be weeks or months or who knows how long down the line until we know what what his situation is going to be, I think Brock Lesnar could be a real difference maker when it comes to a wrestling war. Brock Lesnar brings recognizability, obviously. He brings legitimacy, and he brings also some intriguing matchups for us, and he brings some intriguing mainstream media opportunities as well when you consider what Brock Lesnar has accomplished through his life and over the course of the past year or so with his shot at the NFL. And we're going to be watching the Brock Lesnar story, I think, very closely, and especially as it pertains to his situation with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Okay, because that's one thing that, TNA is working with New Japan. Brock Lesnar is with New Japan, and so there's nothing going on right now, but, it's something to talk about, something to think about. We're going to be back right after this with more with Mike Tenay. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're here with Mike Tenay. In the second hour, we're going to be here with Mick Foley, and this first hour is going by much quicker than I wanted it to, but that's the breaks, and we knew it going in. Mike, before I get to some more of these names, have you been obviously pleasantly surprised? Because there's stuff that we can't talk about, but there's a lot of stuff that has already come out, as you can tell by the positioning and getting the Monday night slot. Spike TV... you really lucked into the sense that for whatever reason, they have decided that they want to, the original decision was not to compete with Vince McMahon, and they've done a 180. They want to compete with Vince McMahon, and you guys and UFC are the players in that game, and it's helped you. You've got a Monday night slot now. If everything goes well, you'll probably be getting some major exposure, perhaps specials down the line. Anything can happen. It all depends on how the public reacts. But, it's, what are your thoughts as far as everything and the stuff that you do know?
Well, you're right. Anything can happen, but I have to tell you that I am so much more optimistic now about the backup, the promotional efforts that we're receiving and will receive from Spike TV than really I was at the time of the announcement. There was always that question whether they would just be providing us a time slot and running the show without a lot of promotion, and that was certainly a possibility. Maybe because of the situation with the WWE and the UFC, it's almost as if TNA and Ultimate Fight people are the beneficiaries in this, and we love it. It's been so encouraging to see the representatives and the executives from Spike TV who were in Orlando, Florida for our Unbreakable pay-per-view, and a couple of them have been at the last couple of tapings even before that. But when you have 8 executives from Spike TV at Unbreakable, and they absolutely loved the show. They were blown away by the last match. They were thrilled, I think, with everything in terms of the professionalism of the product, and I think we're now seeing, just with the great promotion that we've received from them, and with other promotion that we are going to be receiving in the next week and certainly in the next couple of months. So it's very encouraging, and I'm very optimistic about it.
Okay, Bill Goldberg, your friend. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, he is my friend, and God, it would be great to have Bill Goldberg as a part of the TNA product. Whether that happens or not, boy, I guess it's a long shot at this point, just judging by what I perceive to be Bill's overall mindset about the professional wrestling business. I just think that at this point in time, he is more concerned and more into making a name for himself in the movie business, and if there was ever a chance for us to do something in terms of a cross promotion, I would certainly be 100% for it, and I think it could work to the benefit of both of us.
That's what I was thinking, because I don't think that Bill Goldberg would ever I don't think he will ever be a full-time pro wrestler again. But
can't see it.
No, I don't see it. But the idea of, maybe twice a year for a big show as a mystery tag team partner, or, do you know what I mean?
And let's be honest about this situation with Bill Goldberg becoming a movie star. The more visible that you are in everyday life, the more TV time that you have, the more in demand you can be in terms of being a movie star. So I think that it really, that kind of level of visibility and promotion could work for both Bill and for TNA. So let's hope that's the direction that it goes in.
Yeah, because I was thinking that there's ways you can do it. I mean, I don't think that'd be beneficial to either of you for him to be, well, it could be beneficial for you to have him full time, but it isn't going to happen. But anyway, but as far as an occasional appearance, perhaps when he's got a movie coming out, or perhaps when you just need, when you got a big show and you want that one thing that makes the big show special, he's a guy out there, and he's not going to ever go to Vince, I don't think.
And he's the guy that could really help you, both in terms of spiking a rating and possibly pulling a number on a pay-per-view.
Exactly. We're going to go to Tony in Saguas, Massachusetts. Tony, you're on with Mike.
Hey, Mike, I really am optimistic. I feel great about being a fan again. I feel optimistic about you guys, and I'm really excited. It might not be, I don't want to put you guys down, it might not be the level of WCW, the Monday Night Wars, but at least you guys will be an alternative, and you have visibility now.
Tony, I agree with you 100%. We are that alternative that, as I mentioned earlier, that I just think wrestling fans are looking for. I mean, number one, I'm a wrestling fan. Before I'm a wrestling announcer and before I'm a part of the TNA creative team, I'm a wrestling fan. And I watch the WWE programming, but I'm not satisfied with just that. So I watch wrestling from Mexico. I watch wrestling from Japan. I watch the Pride product, the UFC product, but I also realize that I'm unlike most wrestling fans. Most fans don't go out of their way to try and find where they can acquire Japanese tapes or watch wrestling from Mexico. So we are going to be providing a service and providing a product to the people who are looking for that alternative. And I think we have a damn good product right now, and a product that can be an alternative to the WWE, and a product that can bring back a lot of people to be wrestling fans once again.
Now, Mike, one of the what I think is one of the unknown stories is, and I'm appreciative as a wrestling fan, is the Carter's willingness, the owners of TNA, to bankroll this thing. And what's your relationship in with the Carters? And are they in it for the long? Are they? What kind of people are they?
Well, I think the mere commitment that they've shown for 3.5 years tells you just how strong that they're behind the product. They're really tremendous people. I had a chance to introduce Bob Carter to the TNA TV audience for the first time on a recent pay-per-view pregame show, and it was the first time that he'd ever been on camera, and I did not tell him in advance that he was going to be on camera, because he would have declined. He would have said no. But I felt in my heart like it was the right move at that point to make. And when you consider what the company has done in terms of giving this creative team the ball, what an incredible opportunity it is for me personally, but even more so, what a bigger responsibility it is when you consider how everyone in the company, from Bob Carter, from Dixie Carter, all the way down to the opening match guy, to the guy that's pulling the TV cable behind that cameraman, how much of a responsibility it is for the people that they put in charge, and how much they're affected by every decision that we make. And it's one of those opportunities and responsibilities that none of us are taking lightly, because we know just what's at stake.
And my last question, Mike, and I was a huge WCW fan, and it's one of the most fascinating stories of how much money, WCW had behind it. They owned the TV station. It was like the perfect arrangement. What was your opinion of that whole, the rise and fall of WCW?
That's going to take a month.
Dave, how many hours do we have?
Well, I mean, what was your, was it tragic to you watching it? Could you see it happen?
He was living it. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was tragic. Yes, I saw it coming, and there's been some things written in some books, Bobby Heenan's book, actually, about people who stuck their head in the sand.
A lot of people stuck their head in the sand. It really, I mean, but go ahead, yeah.
And I can recall when I used the phrase, I can see the handwriting on the wall, and this was, a couple of months, maybe 6, maybe 8 months before the actual bloodletting, maybe even longer. But I remember using that phrase, I can see the handwriting on the wall, and I can just absolutely remember being castigated by other people in the company saying that, we'll never go out of business, you're crazy. And it was a tragedy. It was something, though, that, that I've absolutely put in the past, and for the last 3.5 years, it has been such a breath of fresh air to be a part of the TNA product, and just the freedom that as an announcer that I've received from the people with TNA, from the Jarretts to the Carters and everybody that's been involved in terms of management, that to me has been the biggest payoff of all.
And Mike, do you think that Spike will maybe become kind of a partner with you and kind of to get the bigger names to pay that bigger salary? Do you think maybe Viacom would kind of become a partner with you guys? Because it seems like the Carters are spending money for the time, but the talent, I'd like to see more. I think to get the names, I think that's going to help you out even more. You need the big names.
Well, you know, what can I say? I can't really talk for the Carters at this point to say whether they would be interested in having that or not. That's a decision that has to be made by them. But when you look at the fact that we were able to have Mick Foley, in essence, say yes to us, then I think you can, before he changed his mind, but I think then you can realize the level of people that we are going after. Not going to be able to attract all the big name talent, but we are looking to pull the trigger if we can when it makes sense. So let's hope that whether it's the Carters that are investing it or whether they do go outside and get other investors, let's hope that we're ready when that chance comes.
Well, Mike, I have that great feeling I have when I read The Observer, and I have that great feeling about TNA as an alternative, and it's going to be a fun time to be a wrestling fan now.
It's a great time to be a fan.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that, your thoughts, and boy, it sure is.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, very welcome. Mike, I want to ask you real quick. You know, you brought something up as far as announcing. What is the difference, in a nutshell, of announcing for WCW and announcing for TNA?
Well, the biggest difference on the surface that people would see is my positioning in terms of with TNA, where I am the lead guy and the play-by-play announcer. We're in WCW for the most part, with the exception of the Thunder shows and some of the weekend programming or international programming. I was put in the second or third slot and used as an information guy. So obviously that's a huge change and a huge difference for me. But the biggest change is just in the mentality and the mindset of the people that are behind the product. And I've said it before on this show. Jerry Jarrett came to me the eve of the very first show some 3.5 years ago, and his line to me was, "We're going to let Mike Tenay be Mike Tenay." And that's what they've done for 3.5 years, and I'm very thankful to them for that chance.
Okay, we're going to go to Samaj in California. Are you there?
Hello?
Hey there.
Hey, how you doing?
We're doing good.
Good. Just wanted to know a little bit more information about TNA, because I'm a big wrestling fan. I've been watching wrestling since the age of 4. Of course, my favorite WWE, but, I watch WCW, ECW, and a couple of independent shows here and there. I just want to know, let's see.
What do you want to know?
Is TNA going to be as good as the WWE? Because, I've watched TNA a couple of times when I was on, I think, Fox Sportsnet, and it didn't kind of sit too well with me. I'm a big wrestling fan. I love more wrestling, the better, pretty much.
Well, I saw a quote in an interview that Dixie Carter of TNA gave in the last couple of days, and she said, if you watch professional wrestling for the 20-minute in-ring promos, then you're going to love the WWE product. But if you watch to see the most cutting edge, the most spectacular in-ring presentation that you can get in North America today, then I think you want to watch the TNA product. I just wish that a lot of you would have had a chance to see that pay-per-view main event that we did at Unbreakable, the match with AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe. I just think that there was something about the spirit of that match that really epitomizes and exemplifies everything about the TNA product. And I think we're going to take that momentum that we had from that match and that show and keep it rolling as we head into Spike TV. But I think you owe it to yourself to watch and see if it's something that you like when it comes to professional wrestling.
Okay, we got to head to a break right now. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Mike Tenay, the voice of TNA. We're going to get to one last phone call before Mike's got to go. Scott in L.A. What's going on, Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Observer.
Thank you, Scott.
How are you? And hello, Mr. TNA.
Scott, how's everything?
It's going good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dave, thanks so much for taking my call.
No problem.
I have a question for Mr. TNA. I, for one, being a wrestling fan, going a long time, and I can't wait for the Slammin' Saturday Night Show on Spike TV. And I wanted to ask Mike, for us wrestling fans, what is going to be the match lineup for this upcoming Saturday? Do you know?
Yeah, well, we've already announced the phenomenal AJ Styles is going to kick the show off in a matchup with Roderick Strong. We are going to have the exclusive video footage of the controversy in Canada with Jeff Jarrett with the assist from America's Most Wanted, defeating Raven to regain the NWA World's title. And we have the X Division that's going to be featured as well in a three-way match. And we've got a lot of other surprises, so you want to make sure to tune in to the debut on Spike. Thank you, Scott.
Are you kidding? I already got my TiVo set for it. How can I not miss it?
That's the commitment we're looking for.
Of course.
Okay, we've got it. Scott, thanks very much. We got to get out of here for the hourly break. Mike, good luck. We'll be talking to you plenty of times, I'm sure, over the next year as we watch this thing go. And hopefully in September of 2006, we talk about your big debut from 9 to 11 on Monday nights.
Well, let's hope so, Dave. Looking forward to future appearances. We just can't wait for October 1st and Spike TV and the pay-per-view on October 23rd, Bound for Glory.
Okay, we'll be back with Mick Foley right after this. You're listening to the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
Okay, we're here for the second hour of Wrestling Observer Live. Our guest for the rest of the show will be Mick Foley, who's been touring, promoting his book Scooter, and it's a fiction book based on a kid who grew up in the Bronx during a kind of a bad period in New York, and a baseball fan in the late 60s and the 70s. If you're a baseball fan of that era, I think you'll really like the book. And, of course, Mick Foley's going to be coming back a week from Monday to Raw. He's going to be in Piper's Pit. And, of course, it's a very exciting time to be a wrestling fan right now with so much going on all of a sudden. And, Mick, how have you been?
Oh, I've been doing really good. I am a little tired. I just came home from Kansas City real late. I was up a little bit earlier than I would have liked, but it's nice because I've officially finished all the bookstores, and I kind of set it up so that at the end of the tour I would be able to sign in some fun locations. So yesterday I did the Negro League Hall of Fame in Kansas City. On Tuesday I'm doing a signing at the Philadelphia Phillies game. And then on next Sunday, I'll be signing at the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. So I'm excited. I've worked pretty hard to get the word out, and now I'm just going to relax and have a little fun.
The book. I've read the book, and it's really good. I think that people who have not read you before, but kind of like the idea of a wrestler doing a novel, I think that they will be very, very impressed.
Yeah, I've always maintained that if someone approaches it with an open mind, they'll find something to like about it, which doesn't mean if they dislike baseball, that they're going to love it, because there's a lot of baseball there, but there's some other things running through it, and, I think I'm pretty good at creating characters that people care about, and, I'm really happy with it. I do think, I think you mentioned in the Observer that a woman from the Washington Post, walked in kind of skeptical, and it was neither a wrestling or a baseball fan, and liked it, and said that anybody who grew up collecting cards should like it a lot. So, like I said, if someone has an open mind, I think they'll like something about it.
Now, how much of the stuff, as far as the baseball stuff goes, that you brought into the book? Well, actually, we're gonna head to our first break right now. But I want to bring up this when we come back. How much of the baseball stuff is stuff from your childhood, and how much of it was stuff that you researched? Because, you know, some of the stuff, and I mean the one thing that's a theme in the early part of the book a lot is when Juan Marichal hit Johnny Roseboro over the head with the baseball bat, which I think would have been a couple of years before you were born.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. If you're a baseball fan, I mean, there's just a lot of interesting stuff from the 60s and 70s, the Mets of '69 and all that, and of course, we're going to talk a lot about wrestling. This is a wrestling show, don't worry, but... And you can call us at 1-800-878-PLAY. You can talk to Mick. We'll start taking calls as well right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Mick Foley, whose book Scooter just came out this past month, and he's been touring all over the United States. And yesterday, in fact, was at the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame, which we'll talk about in a little while. But one thing, a theme in your book early on, and I think I sensed it was kind of a theme of kind of something that you were trying to explore was Juan Marichal, who was, and I would assume most people who are listening don't know Juan Marichal well, but he was, I guess, probably the second best pitcher in the National League in the 60s behind Sandy Koufax in the mid-60s.
Yeah, and Bob Gibson was right in there as well.
Yeah, but I mean, he, there was an incident with Johnny Roseboro, and why don't you explain it and explain, because obviously that hit you in some way because you kind of really examined that, and I think there were a lot of themes that you examined, one of which was also the theme that you used in the Randy Orton angle.
Yeah, and this, I'll try to remember, like you said, that this is a wrestling show and people want to hear wrestling, so I'll try to work in, where wrestling played a role in the book or where the book played a role in wrestling as much as I can. Remind me before we leave to tell you about how I got to do the signing at the Negro League, because believe it or not, an ECW incident may have led me there, 9 years after the fact. But with the Roseboro Marichal thing, I read about it and then saw a clip, and it surprised me because Marichal was a guy who always had this, I'm sorry about that, he always had this the big smile, and in this one instance, I guess he thought that the catcher had thrown the ball back to the plate and tried to intimidate him by whizzing it right by his head, and then just a momentary lapse of judgment or a moment of anger, Marichal turned around and clubbed the catcher over the head. So I tried to put myself in the position of a 9-year-old kid who has only that picture. There was a famous picture where he just said, Marichal's eyes were just wide with rage. I put myself in the position of the kid where he only has that picture to go by. So when he's at a Mets-Giants game and he sees Marichal take the mound, he's like, oh my God, he says it's John Marshall, because he wouldn't know the Latin pronunciation. And in his mind, this is a guy who does this every time he's at bat. And he thinks that Jerry Grody, the Mets catcher, must be the bravest man in the world to squat behind the plate with a killer in front of him. And then Scooter's grandfather is kind of like a wizened sage who explains the entire world through the game of baseball, explains that, unfortunately, someone can work their whole life or career, yet be remembered for one brief moment of, cowardice or inaction or shame. And that's kind of a theme, like you said, that's echoed throughout the book, because all of the members of this family, the grandfather included, have a moment they really wish they could take back. And so I after I finished the book, I thought, man, that's, if you don't mind me patting myself on the back, I thought I'd done a pretty good job with that. And then I thought, what, that would work well in wrestling. And I started thinking about it, especially because, I'd had a, reputation as being in some rough matches and doing some things that were considered, pretty, I guess, tough or courageous. And I thought, what if I, had that one brief, lapse in confidence or had a moment of cowardice? And that's, what led to the thing with Randy Orton. And a lot of people in WWE thought it would be the death of my career, that fans would never forgive a guy who chickened out of a match. It was just something that was not done. And, I kind of stuck to my guns in that one, and I ended up telling Vince, asking Vince if he'd ever seen the movie Shane. And he said, yeah. And I said, Vince, I'll tell you what. I said, rent it and then tell me how good the movie would be if Shane takes on the bad guy ranchers the first time that they make life difficult for him. If they said, I don't like the looks of you, boy, and he was, oh, yeah, and went at it, you'd have no movie. I mean, the whole thing was about him, doing some serious soul-searching and then realizing that every once in a while, violence is, the only way out. So that was kind of how I approached it. I didn't come up with the Shane scenario until after the book was written. It wasn't like I was ripping off the Westerns and that. But I think it's become more appropriate than ever because when I wrote that book, we didn't have this steroid thing going on in baseball. And I look at a guy like Rafael Palmeiro, and, man, he's 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, and he will forever be known as a steroid guy. And personally, my instinct tends to believe him. I know I was there in WCW when Brian Knobbs tested positive for steroids, and they said, positive. He goes, okay, what'd you get me for? And he was, pretty surprised. I think that the cup hadn't actually melted with all the, the chemicals he'd put in his body. And the guy said, anabolic steroids. And Knobbs said, steroids, and right in front of the doctor, he took off his shirt. He says, "Does it look like I'm on steroids?" And the doctor said, "There must have been some mistake." So I give the guy the benefit of the doubt. But even if he is guilty, I mean, that's one small mark on a 20-year record, and it's kind of a heavy price to pay.
Well, in baseball, I mean, it's the weirdest thing because the reality, and you know this from whether it's wrestling or baseball or track. I mean, the nature of the competitive aspect of the business is going it's not going to lead everyone to doing that, but it's going to lead to a lot of people doing that. And in a sense, there's a public perception of people as cheaters, and I think from an outsider standpoint they are, but when you're actually in it, I mean, you're in wrestling, and I know you didn't do steroids, but that guys did, whomever they were, and I don't think that the people in wrestling think of them as cheaters as much as just kind of like, well, you understand why they did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost a lot of people an extension of, nutrition and medical science. And I'll be honest, if somebody had handed me a cream and said, put this on your legs and it will, help you, it never would dawn on me that that would be something illegal. And, I mean, even the andro, it's possible and at this point probable that Mark McGuire did more than the andro, but a lot of people wanted to tarnish his record in the year it happened because he admitted to using it. I'm like, man, if something is available at GNC, I don't think it's possible to claim that somebody's cheating.
Well, I mean, the thing with the baseball, with this is that because baseball is such a game of tradition and records, and Babe Ruth or Hank Aaron or Willie Mays or these other people, I mean, everything changes, and you can't judge a number from 1 year, or like in wrestling, you can't judge a match from 1954.
Right.
And if we watch a tape of a match from 1954 and go, God, it's so slow. That doesn't mean those guys were actually terrible, because for their time they might have been great. And
right, and if they had been given them a faster paced match with some of the big moves, it may not have accomplished the goals they were looking for.
Yeah, but one thing in the book, and I think you never mentioned it, but you were kind of talking about Sports Illustrateds in the '60s. And you mentioned a picture, and I'm presuming, and I was going to ask you about this, was that a picture that you were talking about when Tony Conigliaro got hit by...
Yeah, because I remember taking that to show and tell when I was 5 years old, and I didn't really know who Tony Conigliaro was, but that picture has stayed with me, and I mean, that was 35 years ago, I believe it was, or 36 years ago. And really, destroyed the guy's career. Although he did come back to have a couple good years, and then he ended up dying prematurely.
He was a sportscaster out here at the time of his death.
Yeah, but he
in the early
died,
40s.
very young, like early 40s.
He was in his early 40s. I think he had a heart attack, but I'm not sure of that.
Right, but I mean that image stayed with me, and I guess there's it kind of vaguely stays in line with the eye for an eye theory that or eye for an eye biblical passage that plays a role in the book. So there is some eye damage to characters along the way, and that biblical passage plays I guess a pretty big role as the story goes on.
Now, we're going to go ahead to a break right now. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Mick Foley, who signed at the Negro League Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, and also talk about his return to professional wrestling, which will be October 3rd. It will be with WWE, and it almost was with TNA. In fact, Mick will talk about that right after we come back. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Mick Foley, whose book Scooter has just come out. He's been touring all over the United States, doing book signings. Yesterday, he was in Kansas City at the Negro Baseball League Hall of Fame, and you mentioned earlier in the show that an interview you did in ECW about 9 years ago actually led to this, and I am curious how that happened.
Yeah. It was actually the infamous Kane Dewey interview, in which when it was time for me to, become the bad guy in ECW, I thought back to a sign that a fan had held up called Kane Dewey, and the fan had actually asked me a couple weeks before if that would be okay, and I kind of laughed and said, yeah, I guess it's all right. And when I told my wife about it, she was the one who got sick to her stomach. I said in the interview it was me who got sick to my stomach. But I did, I guess, such a good job with that, if you don't mind me saying so, that the guy who had the sign guy, Paul Mellis, actually went into a state of, if not depression, then at least deep concern. And I remember Stevie Richards telling me that he saw him at the gym, and the guy was just, beside himself, going, I thought he knew it was a joke. I don't understand what happened. And a couple months after the interview, I ended up running into the sign guy at a truck stop, on the way back from one of the ECW shows, and he was still, kind of shaken up over it. And he mentioned that he had the world's largest private collection of Negro League memorabilia.
Oh.
And and he asked me if I wanted to, read a book that his memorabilia was a part of. And I said, sure. And at this point, I think that was 1995, I really had not watched baseball in about 15 years. And I'd known a little bit about the Negro Leagues, and when he talked about it, I was a little intrigued by it. So, sure enough, when he came with his peace offering, I read the thing cover to cover in just a couple of days and took a really deep interest, in the league, and that, part of our history that I think, should be better publicized. And therefore, when I, finally really got back into baseball, when the Dewey from the Kane Dewey sign got into it, and we started watching the game together, and especially following September 11th, when, like a lot of people, I really felt a lot of comfort in the traditions of the game. I felt drawn to the museum when I would travel in Kansas City, and when you're on the road, you always have a feeling that, I'll be there next time, I'll see it next time. And I realized once I stopped touring as a regular wrestler that there might not be a next time. So I went to the museum 2 years ago and was introduced to Buck O'Neill and told him I had a novel with a baseball theme coming out in a couple of years, and wondered if they would consider doing a book signing. At that point, no one had, so I thought I invented it, and then it turned out that Tony La Russa of the Cardinals and Ernie Harwell, who was an announcer for the Detroit Tigers for decades, ended up doing signings in the interim. But I went there, and it was great. It was not about how many books we sold, although it was fairly well attended. But it was about trying to get the word out in the city, and the fact that there was an article about it in the Kansas City paper, and the fact that I spoke about it on the internet and on Best Damn Sports Show and on a local Kansas City sports show. It made me feel good because I thought I was telling people about something that should be better known.
Now, wasn't that many weeks ago. I mean, you, I guess, had been talking, and I guess it was to Raven and to Jeff Jarrett about coming into TNA, and then you told Vince that you were going. And now one thing that you mentioned to me, and that was that if you were to tell me how much they offered you, that I would tell you were nuts for considering it. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, if you said to any businessman, "Look, I'm going to burn a bridge with the guy, who helped, make me what I am, and I'm going to do it for half the money and a lot more work and a lot more pressure," I think any reasonable business person would think I was crazy. But Raven had, talked to me about the idea that, hey, we really need, a second group, and I still feel so. To this day, and he said, if you could help get this thing off the ground, it would really dwarf anything that you actually did in wrestling. And I began to think, maybe these guys really need me. And so I had talked to Jeff Jarrett a couple times before that, but I got really serious about it and really thought those guys were great to talk with. Every concern we had, they answered within a day or so, and aside from that, I liked a lot of the guys. I'd seen the shows and knew guys like Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels and Raven and Jeff. I'd known for 17, 18 years, and thought it was a good group of guys. And it turned out the phone call to Vince was more difficult than I thought it would be, and also turned out that they made me feel more wanted than I thought they would, and I think if there's and I said this before at the ROH show, so it's not an original line. I said, but if you look up the word, and now I can't even think of the word.
Persuasive.
Yeah, in the dictionary, there'd be a picture of Vince talking on the phone to me. So that was not a call I got out of, the way I imagined. But
what was this? Because I'm presuming. I mean, I heard you on a radio show in San Francisco a couple days ago, and you were talking about how you were positioned as Vince. I'm doing it for you. You work better under competition.
Yeah, I really believe that, and
it's actually true.
Yeah, it is true. But like I remember Terry Funk saying, you're damn right. Vince doesn't want any competition. I said, but don't you think it'd be better for him? Of course it would be. But that's not the way a businessman approaches things.
Yeah, he spent so much time fighting these people that it's like, I mean, it's almost like, wow, one of my creations is going to the enemy or something.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in some way, I always, had issues with the word, family, but, I'm part of that group. It would have felt really strange to leave, after all these years. And in the end, I'm really happy that I'm staying. It is, it does give me a chance to, gear up for a couple of big matches a year and get into some semblance of shape without letting my weight get out of hand. And it's, and I'll be honest, I'm 40, I have 4 kids. I don't really want the pressure of being, such a influential guy in the group.
Now, with what are your thoughts as far as doing a program with Ric Flair? Because you guys, and certainly Flair, because I think you told me the story. He's got some interviews that he gave to you that you're the only one. You and 1 or 2 people are the only ones that heard.
Yeah. They should have had. If they'd had a camera back there, we'd be, main eventing, the next few WrestleManias. Yeah. Hopefully he's not that angry anymore. There was some. I think there was some built up anger over the fact that it's like, who was I to say no? I don't want to wrestle Ric Flair. You know what? I mean, that was altercation was like 9-10 months ago, and the stuff in the book was a year and a half ago. So it's not as if I lay awake, worrying about it. And I mean, the stuff that Hogan said about me in Canada bothered me for a while too, but that stuff kind of passes away. If they really want me to, and we come up with a good way of doing it, I'm sure that we could make it entertaining, but I don't think it would be any better than if none of this had actually happened. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I was really looking forward to working with Flair, when I came back from, when I which would have been the fall of 2004.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
With the Orton thing? After the
Yeah,
Orton thing?
yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right,
that was my feeling. Yeah, when I came back, it would be to do something with Flair. So I don't think no matter what happens, I won't look forward to it as much as I would have under those circumstances because, I mean, when a guy is, such a legendary in the business, you want to think that he likes what you do. And, knowing that he doesn't, would make it hard to get as excited about doing it because wrestling is not like baseball where if somebody, questions your ability, you can hit 3 home runs off them, and you kind of have payback. And I really doubt it, at my age, not being in the ring, all that much that we would have a match that would cause him to say, I was wrong about you. You really can wrestle.
But he will say that.
What's that?
But he will say that after your match.
Oh, you think so? Well, I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff that could be done creatively. I don't know how long this run he has as a babyface will go, but there is some stuff that can be done. I was even going to propose something. It's too late now, but something involving the book. With an injury and that would lead to my suspension for 90 days that would have miraculously ended like 1 hour before Survivor Series. And it would have been good, but I didn't call up and suggest it. But I have on occasion, actually talked to Vince about doing something. So if that comes my way and they think that that's the route they'd like to go, then we'll make the most of it. And I think what people need to understand about why it bothered me so much is that I actually did get along really well with Rick when we were during the 16 weeks I was there, and I was under the impression that he both liked and respected me. So it really came as a shock to find out that neither was true.
Okay, let's start going to phone calls. We're going to Ed in San Antonio. You're up with Mick. What's going on, Ed?
Hey, guys. Mick, it's always an honor to talk to you. The last time you were on the show, I'm the guy that said that I wasn't able to finish Tatum Brown, and I still haven't, but I'm really excited to get your new book. And
You'll finish it, but it's a long book.
Yeah, the new one is longer than it's 300 pages, so it's a pretty decent investment. Now, when you say you couldn't finish it, why it was too sad or too boring, or what was the story there?
I had heard all your interviews, and I knew that the ending of the book was going to be very dark. And when I was reading the book, I got so emotionally attached to the character.
Oh, that
where everything was perfect in his life, or he thought.
You decided to stop reading when everything was still going.
Oh God, that ending, the one ending in the Tina Brown book, I didn't see that one coming with the letters and everything that were undelivered. My God.
I am supposed to get another screenplay from the director. And I think when I said he was respected, I didn't mean to imply that he was a really well-known director. But the guy who really wants to do it is named Timothy Lynn Bowie, who's done a couple of really good small films. One was called Green Dragon, and the other one he did with his brother was called 3 Seasons, and I believe it won one of the awards at the Cannes Film Festival. And he really has a vision for it that would make it a little less dark so that it'd be a little easier to digest, but at the same time would keep the feeling of the book. And my feeling is I did go a little overboard. I didn't mean to depress people because I honestly didn't think it was depressing when I was writing it. But I really look forward to, kind of going back over it and having somebody else fix mistakes I made along the way.
Okay, Ed?
Okay.
Okay, we'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're here with Mick Foley. We got a full bank of calls. We're going to get to as many as we can before the end of the hour. We're going to go to Charlie in North Carolina. Charlie, what's going on?
You there?
Yes. Charlie.
Hey, it's a great honor to be on here with you two.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Charlie.
Now, I'm a first-time caller, so bear with me here.
Okay.
I had a question for Mick.
Okay.
like with your negotiations with TNA,
Right.
like what did you all have like anything current like planned in when you were talking or?
Yeah, we did have some pretty good plans. But I mean, if somebody else wants to reveal them, that's fine. But I'm going to, leave it up to people's imagination. Maybe in a few years I'll tell people what they might have seen. But I think it would have been pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Anything else, Charlie?
What?
Anything else?
Well, just wondering back with you in the beginning of the year with yourself with Samoa Joe.
Yes.
Like, was that supposed to lead to a match at all, or?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I never. I always made it really clear to Gabe Sapolsky that I didn't know if I could have a match. But we were leading in that direction, and really it was the stuff I did to Joe when I was on the offense that made it really hard for me to walk the next day. And it really wasn't even much stuff, but I was dropping down to my knees as I, hit him with forearms. And I think it was just the weight coming down, 6 or 7 times that really, really messed me up. My knees are pretty arthritic. And I realized, man, I'm probably not going to be able to come up with a match that people expect out of Joe. And I did have a way to have a nice, like a fun match involving Test in my corner, where it was kind of like playing off the interview I actually did use, where I was going to say, Joe's opponent is a former tag team champion, former hardcore champion. Test music was going to play. Down to the Alley comes. Very good friends with Stacy Keibler. He is. And I was going to say me and attack Joe from behind. And then use Test liberally during the match. And it would have been a fun match. Probably would have gotten a good reaction. But I don't think it would have been, any, from a star perspective, anywhere near the matches that people come to expect from Joe. And I thought, man, if you're going to have a comeback, and you're not going to make any money off it, it might as well not be in a situation where you really can't, live up to, the reputation either you or your opponent have.
Okay, Charlie? Yeah. Okay. Mick, you were talking about, you went to Ring of Honor, and I know you watched some of the DVDs or the videos of the product, and, did it, the first time that I saw some of those guys, it was actually before Ring of Honor. It was they had the King of Indies here in it was in Vallejo, California. And I saw like Low Key and Bryan Danielson, and I'd seen Joe many times before actually in Southern California on Indies, and but all of those guys together against each other. Daniels, AJ Styles was there early, both of them are a lot better now, but they were very good then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of an eye-opening thing, seeing these guys that had, none of whom have had any kind of national exposure, and they're really good at, especially like with working with Joe and everything. He came and worked with you. I don't think that as far as, the verbal stuff and everything, he wasn't intimidating. Was that a lot of fun to work with like guys that, haven't had a shot at the big time at that point?
Yeah, first off, yeah, they are so good. Yeah, when I saw the DVD, I was thinking, where do these guys come from? And my feeling is still that so many of these guys are so much better than the guys were on the independent scene when I was breaking in. But I think unless I hear differently, I think everybody liked me there, and thought I was there, to do what was best for the group, and I think they felt comfortable with me. And I'm not saying that Joe would have been oh my God, it's a WWE guy, but I think he liked doing it, and and I don't he played it off really well, even when I was making fun of his. It's not very often that I can make fun of the way somebody looks, but coming as I was from the perspective of being like a WWE guy, it seemed like an appropriate thing to do. So I like doing it, and I thought it was good stuff. And even though it didn't lead to a match, I still think it stood up well on its own merit.
Okay, we're going to go to Winnipeg and Paul. Paul, what's going on?
Hey, Mick.
Yes.
Huge fan, obviously, of the wrestling, but also of your writing. I've got all your books, except for the new one. which I next on my list to buy.
Well, I appreciate it.
And I wanted to let you know that after reading Tatum Brown, you actually inspired me to write a novel. And it's kind of wrestling themed, but it started out being wrestling themed. It ended up being a story about addictions because I've had addictions problems in myself. So it's very personal in some ways, but it's a fiction. So it's kind of cool. And I didn't know when I'd ever get a chance to personally thank you for inspiring me to do it.
Well, man, you know what? I really appreciate that. You know, I hear a lot of people say, "I read your book; it really inspired me," and I'll say, "To write?" And I'll say, "No, to wrestle." Oh man, that wasn't the purpose of the book. I'll tell you what. One other person has told me that I inspired them to write, and he was really appreciative. And then he hands me the book. He goes, "I got to warn you, though, it's kind of sick stuff." And the kind of was putting it gently. I mean, it was really.
No, mine's pretty. There's a bit of language in it, but nothing.
No, believe me, you're not going to. Nothing I've ever read can come close to touching this guy for disturbing
I'd
material.
love to send you a copy and maybe get your feedback from it. If you could maybe give me a way to send it, even if it's through WWE.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably not going to give you that way live on the air. But you know what? I guess after maybe you can talk to the producer, and he'll tell you a way to get the book to me.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll pay for the postage.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Hey, good luck with it. And writing is a lot like wrestling, in that I try to tell people, you should appreciate the work for what it is and what it brings you, and not worry so much about whether you're going to make a fortune off it.
No. I'm just happy to see a book. Like I got it published, and it's got my name on it.
Published? That's awesome.
Yeah, being published is a big deal. I've come to realize that, and that's one thing I've come to realize. I was a little spoiled, having the
you start
a
the
nice
top.
day come right out of the gate, and I thought, well, everything I do is going to be like that. I found out the hard way that's not necessarily so, but I also find out that when you work harder and don't get as much back, that you do appreciate every little thing that comes your way a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Paul, hold on and talk to the producer, and I will. What he'll do is just give him your phone number. Give him your phone number, and what I will do is I will call you and I will give you the
or
address.
even my email address.
Okay, that's fine. I'll email you an address to get it to him. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
All right, thank
you're very
you.
welcome.
No problem.
Okay, let's
The
go.
exchange of numbers makes for really good radio, I think.
Yeah, really. Let's go to Jay in Maryland. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, Nick, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jay, how are you? I was just in Maryland, a week ago?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah, man, I was just wondering, with your stint in ROH, first of all, does Joe hit as hard as it looks like?
He does. He didn't. You noticed I worked it out where I was actually hitting him more often. He only hit me a couple times, but I saw that stuff, and I think I'm pretty good at figuring how guys do things, and I haven't quite figured out how Joe does that unless he's really, catching people. And based on the way that people have looked coming back from Joe, it's no illusion. He lays the stuff in there.
And just another question, Mick. I'm an aspiring wrestler, and just your best advice, what would be the best start to just get that started going?
Well, man, I'll tell you the same advice, I kind of mentioned about writing is that, go into it with the attitude that, of course, you're going to try your best and work hard at it, but understand, in a numbers game, there's, thousands of guys trying for those, 30 or 40 really good spots, and you should try to enjoy the ride and appreciate the job for what it brings. You can entertain people, you can have some fun, you can get some of your aggression out in a legal way, and have a really positive experience. But if you look into it going out, it's a WWE or bust, you're almost guaranteed to end up, miserable.
Right.
Okay.
And my best friend is your biggest fan, basically, and he's going to want to kick my ass when he finds out I just got done talking to you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not sure that's the best friend you should have, but I think there's a compliment in there somewhere.
But I just got done ordering your ROH shoot interview, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy that when I get that in. And, I just want to say thank you for people like you that make the business, the good sides that it does have. I appreciate people like you, and ROH in general. You just
you are the business in my eyes, you know, and people like you inspire me to want to do what I want to do, you know, and I just want to let you know how much appreciated that you really are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, you know, everything I've heard has been positive about that shoot interview. I like doing it, you know, and I think it's pretty entertaining and not as bitter as you'd expect from ex-wrestlers.
And I'm really pulling for Punk, man. I mean, I don't know your opinion on him, but I'm really, really pulling for him. I think he deserves it. I think he could be a future world champion. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see about that.
Yeah, I'm pulling for him, too. I'm among his biggest fans.
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Jay. We'll be back with Mick. We just got a couple minutes left. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.